After the resurrection of Yeshua, something amazing happened. Something so simple that most probably have never even known or realized it. This is so awesome, yet so easily overlooked that I had to do something to glorify this. It all begins on the morning after his resurrection. John 20, 1-7. The first day of the week cometh Mary Magdalene early, when it was yet dark, unto the sepulchre, and seeth the stone taken away from the sepulchre. Then she runneth, and cometh to Simon Peter, and to the other disciple, whom Yeshua loved, and said unto them, They have taken away the Lord out of the sepulchre, and we know not where they have laid him. Peter therefore went forth, and that other disciple, and came to the sepulchre. So they ran both together, and the other disciple did outrun Peter, and came first to the sepulchre. And he, stooping down and looking in, saw the linen clothes lying, yet went he not in. Then cometh Simon Peter following him, and went into the sepulchre, and seeth the linen clothes lie, and the napkin that was about his head not lying with the linen clothes, but wrapped together in a place by itself. Sure seems like verse 7 really wants to make some kind of a point here. To go into that much detail regarding the clothes and the napkin? Was that important? Maybe. Is it really significant? Well, let's take a closer look. This next part was taken from Jerry Shirley, a sermon that he preached in 2006. In order to understand the significance of the folded napkin, you have to understand a little bit about Hebrew tradition of that day. The folded napkin had to do with the master and servant, and every Jewish boy knew this tradition. When the servant set the dinner table for the master, he made sure it was exactly the way the master wanted it. The table was furnished perfectly, and then the servant would wait just out of sight until the master had finished eating, and the servant would not dare touch that table until the master was finished. Now, if the master were done eating, he would rise from the table, wipe his fingers, his mouth, and clean his beard, and would wad up that napkin and toss it onto the table. The servant would then know to clear the table, for in those days the wadded napkin meant I am done. But if the master got up from the table and folded his napkin and laid it beside his plate, the servant would not dare touch the table, because the folded napkin meant I'm coming back. This really does sound convincing, doesn't it? Especially for those of us who are waiting and watching for his return. And while this is exciting, we must test everything and look deeper to make sure this is what was intended. Yes, even something as simple as a head wrapping, which someone has turned into a prophetic sign. When I started to do research about Hebrew dining, I found that the master and slave theory was not a thing for the Hebrews of that time at all. Back in the days of Yeshua, the Jews, the Persians, the Greeks, and the Romans did not sit on upright chairs around the dining table with their legs underneath the table to dine, as portrayed by Leonardo da Vinci's famous painting, The Last Supper. Much like the Japanese people would sit on the floor around a low table to dine, or they would recline on couches or cushions around a low table to dine. They would usually recline on one side while eating with one hand. There were no forks, no spoons, no knives on the table, and certainly there was no table napkin. As one reclined to eat his meal, he first washed his hands in a bowl of water. He might or might not dry his hands with a towel provided. And after the meal, he obviously washed his hands again. The word napkin, used in the King James Version Bible, certainly gives some readers the wrong picture of what was actually put around the head of Yeshua. The Greek word is sadarion, from a Latin word, sudarium. The cloth is likened to our modern-day handkerchief, though larger in size, like a bandana or a headscarf worn by Jewish women. The word folded, found in John 27 in many Bible translations, also gives the readers the impression that the sadarion was folded like one would fold his handkerchief or a towel. The preacher of the sermon article, "Why Did Yeshua Fold the Napkin?" carelessly stated that the napkin, which was placed over the face of Yeshua, was not thrown aside like the grave clothes. The grave clothes was not thrown aside, nor was the napkin simply placed over the face of Yeshua, as the preacher and many like him have implied. John wrote, "And the napkin that was about his head, not lying with the linen clothes, but wrapped together in its place by itself." The word wrapped, or wrapped together, comes from the Greek word antoliso, meaning entwine, roll or coil around and around. The napkin was placed over the face of Yeshua and then wrapped around his head. The New Testament Greek word antoliso is used in 2 other places. "And when Joseph had taken the body, he wrapped it in a clean linen cloth," Matthew 27:59. "And he took it down and wrapped it in linen and laid it in a sepulchre that was hewn in stone, wherein never man before was laid." Luke 23:53. These 2 verses tell us that like the head of Yeshua, which was wrapped by a napkin or kerchief, the body of Yeshua was also wrapped around, swathed by a linen cloth. So therefore, no Jewish boy would have known of this tradition. Also, let's look at the fact that it would be resembling a tradition of man, and we all know how Yeshua spoke of them. Mark 7:8. "For laying aside the commandment of God, ye hold the tradition of men, the washing of pots and cups, and many other such like things ye do." Maybe we need to look at another resurrection of another person in the Bible to see if there's another clue as to why maybe the burial clothes were lying the way they were. John 11:38-44. "Yeshua therefore, again groaning in himself, cometh to the grave. It was a cave, and a stone lay upon it. Yeshua said, Take ye away the stone. Martha, the sister of him that was dead, saith unto him, Lord, by this time he stinketh, and he hath been dead 4 days. Yeshua saith unto her, Said I not unto thee, that if thou wouldest believe, thou shouldest see the glory of God? And then they took away the stone from the place where the dead was laid, and Yeshua lifted up his eyes and said, Father, I thank thee that thou hast heard me, and I knew that thou hearest me always. But because of the people which stand by, I say it, that they may believe that thou hast sent me. And then he thus had spoken, he cried with a loud voice, Lazarus, come forth. And he that was dead came forth, bound hand and foot with grave clothes, and his face was bound about with a napkin. Yeshua said unto them, Loose him and let him go. Oh, there's a big difference here. When Lazarus came out of the grave after being woke up, he was still wrapped in his burial clothes, whereas Yeshua was not. His clothes were the exact same spot as they were when he was raised, meaning no man unwrapped him or needed to unwrap them. This also shows that his body was not stolen, as the thieves would not have had enough time to unwrap him and would have just taken him wrapped. Also, if we look at John 20:4 through 8, we see that Peter and John both saw the linen clothes wrapped together but by themselves. They believed, meaning that they saw the clothes still in their wrapped state. This would have been impossible for humans to have done. The evidence of the intact and not unwrapped grave clothes, both the shroud and the sudarium, prove that Yeshua rose up from his sleeping position right through the wrappings and then passed through the wall of the sepulchre in his resurrected, glorified body. There is a lesson to be gained here. The lesson is one that we all need to learn from, and that is how easy it can be to be deceived by a man. How one's understanding can start rumors and can cause us to see things that are just not true according to Scripture. Finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might. Put on the whole armor of God, that ye may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Wherefore, take unto you the whole armor of God, that ye may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all, to stand. May Yah bless us all. Please make sure to like and subscribe, and also hit the bell icon so that you will be notified of future videos. We look forward to exploring more of the Bible secrets and how they are relevant to us today. And may our Father in heaven bless you on your journey.